I'm going to start a two-piece vessel here. So I've come over with 2 pieces of clay. So ideally you want to throw this vessel, the first piece and the second piece in the same day, even though you won't be able to put them together at that point. It may or may not happen for you, but come over with 2 good-sized chunks of clay before you begin. And also make sure you have some calipers. I'll show you measuring here with them. When you are centering a bigger piece of clay, keep it in that cone position for a little bit longer before you press it down. If you get the top in line first, you can kind of center that first. Focus on the top part and then the bottom part after. And you kind of if you kind of break it down that way, it can make your life a little easier. Also, your form when centering has got to be pretty darn good when you're centering a big piece of clay. Notice how my elbows are really tucked in tight here. My elbows aren't out. I'm not trying to squeeze it this way. They're tucked in, and my left hand is really focused on being aggressive here and pushing the clay, conforming it to my hand. And then my other hand, I'm using my fingers so I'm squeezing in this way. When you're throwing something large, you also need to make sure it is absolutely centered. Sometimes when we throw a smaller piece, we can get away with having a little wobble. It's not that I recommend it, but if there's a little wobble somewhere, sometimes you can work that out later. With this, if there's a little wobble in this clay, it's just going to become a bigger problem. I have noticed I have a little air pocket right on top. Let me feel this. That's another thing too. When you cone this clay up and down, you end up wedging it a little more too. So I just had a little air pocket show up there, and I'm able to pop that real quick. And I'll get started. Even though you have in mind that you're going to try for something big, stay a little tame with it. You can always, you'll have a better time making it bigger later if you want to, versus trying to make it a little bit smaller. If you make it super big right away, it can get out of control. I'm opening this up. And I'm going to pull up the walls. I keep the wheel really slow, and also remember, again, especially with this large piece of clay, you need to really be pulling up and in as you go. You can stretch it out later. No matter what form you have in mind, what you're going for, you'll do that in a little bit. Also, because I'm making this in 2 parts, I know that I think that I want my top to be in just a bit, so I'm going to continue to maintain that curve in a little bit. Now the bottom of this clay, it is a bigger base. Don't forget to always compress the bottom of your vessel. So that's just taking a sponge and just running back and forth over the bottom in there to compress or smush together the clay, which is really a layer of clay and water, clay, water, clay, water. So you're pressing that all down so that the bottom doesn't have an S crack, wind up with an S crack later. I'm going to, on this piece, keep the rim flat and a little thicker than I normally would with anything. Also, before it gets too out of control, I'm going to bring this in. Because that's how I want my form to look in the end. Now, back down to the bottom, there's still a bunch of clay right down there, so I'm focused on bringing that up and through the piece. Got a little funky up there at the top, so I'm going to trim this down a bit. Make sure that's even. And because I had my hand down in there, my arm, that got stretched out a bit. Bring that back in. It's important to do that every so often. You keep it closed in like that in between each pull. I'm laying my finger on it here to maintain that flat space because that's where my two pieces are going to join. So I need a solid platform to score and slip and combine later. Now I'm beginning to stretch it out because my walls are as thin as I'd like them and they're even. Clay has limits, especially when throwing big, so you don't want to make big movements. Okay, I'm keeping this curve soft so that I don't collapse this. You can remove some extra clay down here with a turning tool. I'm going to keep my hand on the inside so I don't push it in any. I want to take off the extra clay that's sitting down there so it can dry a little bit better. Move that out some. There we go. Now I've got extra water here in the bottom. You want to make sure that's out of there. And then I'm going to smooth this out with a flexible rib tool to just refine the form a bit. Now I'm going to take my calipers here and get a measurement of the outside of this right in the middle.